then in this document, which was prepared by Joanne, she said, historically, that was the first word in the sentence, historically, my agency, meaning Mr. Mumau, has been issuing a lot of documents of title and registration without authority in current law. Without authority. Doesn't that mean illegally? We haven't talked about the optional titling yet, right?
I don't want to interrupt you. So
Okay.
you read about Jack Solis, and you didn't meet him, but he's a friend of the people.
He was distinctly not your typical traffic court rules committee guy.
And he was on the committee.
He came onto the committee in 1982.
Okay.
But it was actually the Attorney General who was a member, and the Attorney General just selected members of his outfit to take his place during the meetings, right?
Okay.
So Jack was the guy who was always there, starting in 82. And the other thing about the Traffic Court Rules Committee, oh man, this is going back to the separation of powers doctrine. The Legislative Assembly, when they created this agency of the Supreme Court, they put 2 executive branch officers on it. They said, the superintendent of state police is going to be one of your members.
So the Minor Court Rules Committee was an agent, was part of the judicial branch. Is that, okay?
Yeah,
so
they were an agency of the Supreme Court.
Okay, and
the Supreme Court runs the whole state system. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is the head of all state courts.
And so the committee should have been consistent with attorneys and judges, people within the judicial branch.
Right.
Okay.
But it had the superintendent of state police, and it had the director of the DMV, 2 executive branch officers. Now, why would they have those?
Oh, do you know their names?
No, I don't.
Okay.
And they didn't. They just said the superintendent.
Were they
But they had replacement. They didn't. They always sent somebody else. Except
from those branches.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was always
from those agencies.
Okay.
Except Mr. Mumau. Mr. Mumau was there. He was the last DMV director before it folded, before that agency of the Supreme Court was over. And it was supposed to be over in 1983, by the way, but they didn't get done. They didn't get done making the public feel welcome in traffic.
The Minor Court Rules Committee was supposed to be done or shut down by 1983.
Yeah,
but they weren't.
Sunsetted. Yeah.
Okay.
The end of their trail.
And so if people went to read the Blue Book, we could read about all these players. How did you find out that there was... You read all of this in the Blue Book, the Oregon Blue Book?
No, I didn't read that until later. I mean, I read it in the I read 484, 420, and found out. And the other number in 1967, when it changed to the Minor Court Rules Committee, then it became 1.510, and that 1 is that's about courts. Chapter 1 of the Oregon Revised Statutes is about courts. So they changed the location of that statute. The 400 statutes, the 400 series, was the motor vehicle laws.
Okay. And this committee was supposed to make the general public feel welcome? Or just who feel welcome?
Well, they couldn't put that in law. But, so they sent Mr. Mumau, they said, hey, David, you need to go down to the Legislative Assembly. Now they're talking 1985, and tell them that we need this law. So what is the optional titling law? And I think I maybe did mention this. Did I say something about the Department of Transportation by rule may provide for the optional titling of vehicles that are not required to be titled? Did I say that earlier?
There's this minor court rules committee is supposed to be sunsetted or shut down in 1983, but in 1985, because they, for what reason they weren't done.
And I don't know that reason, and I never talked to anybody in that committee. When I even though I got there to the Legislative Assembly, I mean, I was there in 1983.
Right.
I was focused on family court.
Okay.
But they were there doing this business, and while I was there, you know.
And so the committee, how many people were on the committee?
I would say probably a dozen, maybe 15, something
They
like that.
they went to Mr. Mumau. His first name is David Mumau. They went to him and said, "What?
You're going to go talk to the legislature and get this law passed." So he took it to the legislature, and it had already been drafted by the judges and the attorneys, but they changed it. They amended it in the process. It started off with the DMV is going to do this, and then they changed it to the Department of Transportation is going to do this.
And David Mumau was the director of the Department of Transportation.
No. The DMV.
The DMV. Okay.
The division of the department.
Why did the committee do this? Why would they go to Mr. Mumau and say?
Okay, so there were 3 sections of that law. The first one was the optional titling rule, which the Department of Transportation by rule may provide for the optional titling of vehicles that are not required to be titled. And the second sentence starts off, this section provides for the titling of categories of vehicles, types of vehicles, or otherwise. Third sentence, upon request of an owner. Upon, that's an option, upon if they request. So that's the first section. The second section is 803. Did I say the first one was 803.035? The second section was 803.040, and that says the effect of the title. If the state has issued title, the vehicle shall remain titled and subject to all of the provisions of the vehicle code. And the third section was the optional registration. It left out one of the interesting words, not subject to. The subject to is gone from the titling paragraph. But otherwise, it's very similar. And I'm not sure whether that was a typographical error or whether there's something more to that. And I'm still working on that. But they only adopted the rule for titling. They never adopted a rule that allowed for the optional registration of vehicles. But I wrote one after.
Okay, but so the committee went to Mr. Mumau, and what did he do? What did Mr. Mumau do?
He didn't go. He was smart enough not to show his face in that venue, in the Legislative Assembly. He sent his lady friend, Joanne Peterson, and she read this document into the record. She introduced the bill. The bill number. The bill number. This bill was supposed to raise revenue from optional titling, right?
For the DMV.
For the DMV. But contrary to Article 4, Section 18, it says the bill number was Senate Bill 124 of 1985.
And all revenue bills are supposed to be done in the House and not the Senate.
Yeah, that's Article 4, Section 18. Anyway, that's how unconstitutional this whole thing was. It was unconstitutional because they had executive branch members on this judicial branch agency, and then the bill number was wrong. And then in this document, which was prepared by Joanne, she said, historically, that was the first word in the sentence, historically, my agency, meaning Mr. Mumau, has been issuing a lot of documents of title and registration without authority in current law. Without authority. Doesn't that mean illegally?
And historically means over how many years?
Well, and the legislators got a laugh out of that. They said, "Oh, I guess that's longer than any of us can remember, right?" And they're all chuckling over that. I bought the tapes. The tapes of these bills are available from archives generally. I bought all 5 hours of the hearings on optional titling, and it was.
What document? What is the document that Joanne read?
Oh, and this document is what everybody needs to take to traffic court. Thank you. That document is Exhibit B in support of Senate Bill 124 of 1985. Just remember, B, Exhibit B, and get a copy of it. Ask the state archives if you can have that. And I don't know that you can. They have tightened up on those things.
I got it.
You got it.
I got it in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
She got it.
But there were several things that weren't there that I couldn't get. So.
Okay. And then.
Explain. Joanne read this Exhibit B onto the record in this hearing, which people can listen to if they go get the cassettes of 5 hours of this hearing from Senate Bill 124. They can get all of this from the state archives. What she read, what she said was the DMV is, and I'm paraphrasing, the DMV is collecting revenue that they didn't have authorization to collect.
Historically. Mm-hmm.
And what we know about statutes is once it's established, is it retro? Does it cover?
No, of course not. We have this thing called no ex post facto laws, right? That's U.S. Constitution and Oregon Constitution both have that no ex post facto. So, no, you're not supposed to, but it did.
Is the DMV allowed to collect revenue for something if they're not authorized to?
Well, if they're not.
I mean, like.
Thank you for answering that.
Does there have to be? There has to be. It has to be written in order for them to be able to do it. So basically.
But see, now here's going back to something I said a long time ago. All power is inherent in the people, politically speaking. So, who's going to have more power than the all-powerful people,
right,
in order to grant them a privilege which is a driver license. Oh, and that Oregon Revised Statute, by the way, is 801.050, and it reads very explicitly. It says, subject to compliance with the motor vehicle laws of the state, owners and operators are granted the privilege of using the highways of the state. So it's and it's right up front. In the 801, Chapter 801 is divided into two sections. One is general principles of the whole vehicle code, and then starting at section 100 is the definitions. So it's right up front in Chapter 801.
So it says subject to compliance.
Subject to compliance. That means you have to, anyone who gets a driver license has to obey the laws.